Welcome to training on the Compliance module on the GeoForce application. Today we will go over how to set up your assets in the Compliance tab, configure certifications, put together policies, and run reports. To start, click on the Compliance tab at the top of your screen. The first screen you will see is the Compliance Status screen. This screen will be blank until you set up your assets, certifications, and policies. To get started, let's first set up certifications. Compliance certifications are used in creating rules for your compliance policy. Certifications are paired with compliance types in order to create a rule. The certification screen displays the name of the certification, the short name, which is the abbreviated name for the certification, the description of the certificate, whether the certification is currently in use or retired, and whether or not the certification requires an attachment. In order to create a new certification for use in the compliance rule, click on Define New Certification. Start by entering the certification short name, which should be an abbreviated version of the display name. Next, enter the display name. This will be seen when creating the compliance rule or when attaching certifications to the assets. Finally, you can enter a short description if you need to further describe the certification. When you're done, click Save. If you would like to change the display name of a certification, you can click Edit under Actions. Once a certification is changed, it will affect all instances of that certification in the compliance profile. If a certification is no longer in use, they can be marked Retired. This will cause them to no longer appear as an option when working with a compliance policy or editing assets compliance status. You can also select Unretired from the Actions section should you need to bring this certification out of retirement. Next, we'll show you how to create compliance types. Compliance types are what compliance rules are applied to in order to make up a compliance policy. They are typically the same type of assets that make up your account. To access, use the drop-down menu to select Compliance Types. The screen will display all currently active compliance types and their description. To create a new compliance type, click here. A new window will pop up. Enter the display name and a short description of the compliance type. We recommend that the display name be a broad category like CCU, Sling, or Tank. When you're finished, click Save. If you'd like to edit this compliance type later, simply click Edit. To create a policy, start by clicking Policy. A policy is a collection of rules that define the compliance requirements for your equipment. For example, you may have a requirement that offshore baskets of any kind require a lift test every 2 years. Every compliance rule has 3 parts: the asset type, in this example, offshore basket, the certification that is required, in this example, a lift test, and the validity or renewal period, in this example, every 2 years. Your compliance policy is simply all the compliance rules you have defined for your equipment at any given time. To create a compliance policy, click Edit. This screen will display any current policy items you have in place. Click Add Policy Item to get started. Use the drop-down menu to select compliance type, the certification, whether or not the policy item is a requirement or just a recommendation, and the frequency of the renewal period. If this certification will never expire, please uncheck the box. When you're done, click Save. Your new policy item will show up on the list. Repeat these steps until you've added all of the needed items. When you're done, click Apply to add them to the draft policy. This change to the draft policy could take 5 to 10 seconds to refresh. After 10 seconds, please click on the Refresh link. You may now view how the new draft policy will affect your status by clicking Compare Assets. This is where you can see if any of the changes or additions you made to the draft policy will affect the certifications currently on your assets. This won't show much with your first draft policy. However, it is good to check this screen when you're updating your policy later. Once you've confirmed that the new draft policy is correct, click the Activate button. To manage or change your policy, you will need to create a new draft each time. The system will save all of your old policies for record-keeping purposes. If you want to view your active policy, you can use the drop-down menus to narrow down the data you want to look at. The next step is to add your assets to the compliance module. To start, click Assets. Select the assets you'd like to add a compliance type to, and then click Change Compliance Type. Use the drop-down to select the correct type, then click Save. This process may take a few minutes to update. When completed, you can search for specific assets by typing it in the search bar, or use the drop-down menu for compliance types. You may have a user that needs to see a different level of data in the Compliance tab than in the rest of the Track and Trace application. To set this up, you will need to create the users who need to see this information here. Please note that there are 4 permission levels for users, and you can change a user's permission level at any time. To create a user, click Add New User. The system will request a display name, an email address, and the language you want this user's compliance data to be shown, which is currently English or Portuguese. On the right, click the correct permission level. When you're done, click Save. If you have any questions about what a user's permission level will enable them to do within the application, please contact Help Desk for further clarification. Now that you've set up your assets, users, and policy, you can click on Reports to schedule a report to be sent on the current status of your assets. Simply type a display name for the report, the email address you want the report sent to, and how often you'd like the report sent. When you're finished, click Create Report. You can always edit or delete these scheduled reports in the future. To change some settings for your account, you can click Account Settings. From here you can make some small adjustments like changing the account's time zone and language. If you'd like to adjust when the system will change your warnings to violations or from OK to warning, you can adjust it here as well. If you wish, you can require the user to add a certificate number before adding an asset certification. You can also choose to enable the use of black flags for your assets. This is handy if you'd like to mark assets that are unfit or unsafe for work. Finally, you can enable Asset Sync. This will automatically change the compliance type of an asset when the asset's type changes in the core application. When you're through making changes, hit Save. When all parts of your compliance policy have been set up, you can use the Compliance Status page as your dashboard. From this page, you can view serial number, compliance type, the current compliance status of each asset, if it's currently in a named location, and finally, the actions you can take on that asset. At the top, you can search for a specific asset number or use the drop-down menu to look at a specific compliance type. To view the asset certifications, you can select Certifications under Actions. The Asset Status View allows you to see a list of certifications applied to this individual asset, the date the certification work was done, when it will expire, the certification number when applied, the attachment of the completed certification if uploaded, and when and by whom the certification was last updated. To attach a new asset certification, click here. A list of certifications you currently have active in your policy will appear in this window to choose from. You can upload a copy of your certification and add the certification number. Finally, you will need to enter the effectiveness date. When you're finished, click Save. On the right, you can also edit the certification or remove it entirely if it was applied to the wrong asset. You can also send an email about this asset to an email address. If you click History, you can view the entire history of the asset's compliance certifications. When you're done, you can click here to return to the compliance status screen. This concludes the tutorial on the compliance module for the GeoForce application. If you have any questions, please utilize our help site or reach out to our help desk. Thank you for choosing GeoForce.